know there's more that's out there, and I just haven't found it yet. I know there's more that's out there, another me I haven't met.
Oh, Twilight, you have no idea.
The Friendship Kids.
What the fuck? Shouldn't I be human for this? Well, then go finish it. You lazy ass. Ugh, whatever. So Equestria Girls has finally reached the end of a trilogy, and it's been more than a hell of a ride. From the songs to the emotional drive and every character, new and old, we've gotten to see over the course of these past 3 years. It's opened up a whole new world and then some for many minds to explore. This third installment, however, does more than just end a saga. It raises the bar for anything and everything that could possibly come after it. The opening sequence does well to mix the feelings of the whole movie before we ever get to see the beginning credits by bringing us our humane characters together at the threat of a disaster, and it turns out Rainbow Dash broke a fucking guitar string. Though it is cute seeing her wanting to do so for the entertainment of the Humane Crusaders. It is after this when we see something that's going to be a running theme too. A struggling Sunset trying to find answers hangs back and begins to separate herself from her friends while she tries to find answers to a question that we find out later is one of the most important jobs she's gotten since her reconciliation with the students and faculty of Canterlot High. Trying to figure out how magic works in this world, now that it's been brought over from the realm of Equestria. This is probably one of the biggest aspects to this movie we've not seen in the other two. As the saying goes, the concepts of great power coming with great responsibility. Sunset needs to learn how the magic works and how the girls can get it under control before it winds up causing ill effects on their world. It seems there's someone else interested in the portal as well. A hooded figure makes her way from a city bus to examine the portal statue, whom we later find out is the human world's Twilight. This is a character I think was a twist on my expectations, and someone many of us probably can relate to as far as an individual being within their environment. As we get to learn about her through the first half of the movie, while being one of the school's top students, she also doesn't seem to fit in socially with her classmates. This is something I need to speak from the heart. It's something I connect with very well. As someone who is usually one of the top students going through most of school, it's no surprise for anyone to learn that I was picked on, even threatened, going through school. Twilight's situation rings a familiar tune to me, both from seeing how her classmates treat her in the hallways to the song of her greatest thoughts and feelings, of feeling the pain of an emptiness you just can't seem to fill, despite many efforts being taken to answer the need to fill it. Her song she sings about needing something more in life as she makes her way to Crystal Prep's principal office is both painful and empowering, in needing to having the hope to reach out beyond what you know to find what you already know is missing. In all of the pieces Ingram and Anderson have done in this particular movie, I think it's this one that will remain the most memorable, at least to me. The lyrics and music portray the sadness and pain Twilight feels at the beginning, but the determination and empowerment she feels as she pushes onward into the unclear waters that is her future life, even if she may not quite know the destination yet. Before the song starts, though, there's something that bothers me. It's nice to see the staff of Studio B giving us a human model for Princess Cadence, Dean Cadence in this case, and interestingly enough, her long draped hair seems to fit her human model better than I feel it does for her pony model. However, as she talks to Twilight, it seems she's already seeing what Twilight is missing in her life, and the writing for her dialogue doesn't make it very subtle as to where she is trying to push her young charge's choices towards. We've not even reached the halfway point, and already we know the great inner struggle of our story, as well as the seemingly inevitable outcome of such. I believe it's called bad writing when you reveal the ending before the journey of the story begins, and those few lines of dialogue I feel should have been left out, or at least make it not so blatantly obvious what the ending of the story is going to be. There's a shift in design as we move between the two schools as well. While the Canterlot High uses the earthy tones we're used to around Ponyville back in the world of Equestria, Crystal Prep is true to its name, with its designs and color schemes being blues and purples with crystal jagged edges. In animation, however, we can look at more than just shapes and design, and as Twilight walks through the halls of her school, regardless of her matching its color scheme and many of her peers, it's obvious that the way her mind works follows a different beat than those around her. She's bumping into people, stopping abruptly, and sidestepping around groups, while everyone else in the school seems to be flowing naturally as a crowd. Even visual placement-wise, Twilight is distant and separate from her Crystal Prep classmates through most of the movie. That feeling of not fitting in is another thing I think many bronies, at least the older of us that first gave the show a chance when it wasn't the in thing to do, can empathize with this as well, as I'm sure those scenes of awkward social passersby are probably more than just a little familiar for a few of us. This is another thing I think this third installment has done better than the first two. While the first one tried to work out the social cliche system high school has, it was never really well portrayed how each group, or even a school as a whole, will usually have its own ebb and flow of movement where most of the students will step to the beat much like a silent drum. Twilight, as I said, was however not a part of this ebb and flow, and could never connect with her peers, most likely because of it, and her own hermit-like lifestyle. The principal of Crystal Prep is pulling a lot of strings during the movie, much like many others who believe themselves to be in such power, utilizing words and manipulation to push people into doing what she wants. Having a villain like this is actually more intimidating personally than having a bulky, over-muscled monster attacking, because it makes the threat present on multiple levels and can drive the story along, much as Principal Abacus does for Twilight, mixing her interest in her future with Everton and its independent studies program, and competing against other students in the stage in events she may or may not be used to. Like archery, for instance. Beyond that, there's another villain in this movie, but we'll leave that for a few moments, because what I want to talk about next is the animation. There's more dynamic effects used in this movie than in its predecessors, and twice the cast, with the inclusion of several of the CP students, like Sour Sweet and Sugarcoat, to name a couple of them. In the first two movies, I heard it a lot. The emotional driving scenes fell flat because of timing or persons being considered as out of character, or not enough time to invest in them for the audience to grow attached. This is at least didn't appear to be so at all during the course of this movie. Sure, the CP girls might have seen one note most of the time, but when it came to this new human Twilight character, we got to see a lot of what she goes through, and from what I can tell, has been through for quite some time. And it's easy, at least for me, to feel her pain. From her push to gain knowledge and understanding of the world around her, to the awkward struggles against peers and the greatest aspect of anyone with such a great mind, simply trying to fit in. I can see more than just a touch of myself and my own past in her eyes, and the pain that many in her situation feel still to this very day. This, believe it or not, leads into the struggle we have with her character. In her situation, whether she was put there herself or not, she is, in all intents and purposes, a victim of her own self, as well as that of someone standing over her, pushing her down a darker path. I mentioned another villain in this movie, and it's not a person. It's a concept. In Twilight's device, we see the draining power of something even the creator doesn't understand, and struggles to control it with each new outburst. Seeing the tears in her eyes when the device's out-of-control bursts of magic happen is a sign of the pain it's causing her. And even as she says, she can't handle what the device is doing, whether that be to the Humane 5 or the summoning portals bringing the dangers of Equestria into the EG world. The greatest of this that we see is when the device is unlocked, after some not-so-kind coaxing by Principal Abacus and her stooges, and Twilight is overtaken by the very power she feared. Maybe I'm grasping at straws here, but there's another parallel here to my own life, though I have doubts it's another what may take. When a force of power you don't quite understand or feel you control yourself begins to consume what you once were. And this is when we get what I've heard others call Midnight Twilight, the demoness form of Humane Twilight, when that power overtakes her and she becomes the very thing she feared herself and causes the pain and fear she had felt in others. She loses herself to her deepest wishes of understanding and curiosity and disregards any care or hope for other people in her life. With the finale, we see that Sunset finally gains the knowledge we see her blow up about a couple times before in the movie, and learns that when her and her friends pony up, as they call it, is when they are showing their truest selves, the hearts that call the original elements of harmony to their pony counterparts. There are many scenes throughout the movie that reference back to the original first episode, from the door being opened by Twilight to knock Spike back, all the way to the scene of the unlocking of the elements themselves when Sunset Shimmer takes on her new ascended form. Admittedly, this form definitely has better and more attractive features to it than her demoness form from the original movie, with brighter colors and more detailed themed shapes and angles to its design, though I'm not personally a fan of the mask look of her upper face. When the fighting blast stops, it was a touching moment when Sunset Shimmer reached for Twilight's hand to help her from what she knew she was fighting against. It was a surge of power, and even after Twilight, defeated by a force stronger than she even understood, cowered away, she fought back the fear and the tears to reach for the hand for the one wanting to help her overcome that pain we've seen in her eyes ever since her journey began. Honestly, without both of Sunset's prior experiences, I don't think her character would have been ready to do that. And even earlier on in the movie, she was still struggling with understanding what she would do as a friend. Much like when she unloads on Twilight about the power she didn't understand, it's nice to see a redeemed heart such as hers learning to understand the regret that comes from saying or doing things to hurt others when you may not have wanted or needed to do so. The struggles of both characters, though, lead them up to the point when they can connect by understanding each other's pain and ambitions alike. The references throughout the movie mostly make callbacks to the original pilot episode of Friendship is Magic, but I've noticed a few others as well, such as when Fluttershy sat with her animal friends, much like scenes from Snow White. Many artists get inspiration for certain pieces or movements in lives by the work of others, and those will occasionally find themselves incorporated in their new works. And it's been no secret up to this point that this series, pony or otherwise, has been heavily influenced by magical girl anime such as Sailor Moon and the Disney princesses stories. Inspiration is never a bad thing, so long as it's utilized in a unique way, and as artists, that inspiration can be found maybe where you least expect it. I love seeing these works when they begin to show a bit more of their creators' personalities as well, and let's admit it, I'm sure many people know at least a couple of people that may seem familiar in the faces and actions of some of the characters of this movie. There were some slip-ups in the work and design, but overall, I definitely rate the third installment of the Equestria Girls as their best one yet, and it's the finish of a trilogy I never thought would come full circle in its story. From seeing Sunset Shimmer falling, to bringing the counterpart of her savior around and healing the pain that both of them felt. It's a touching string of events and a story I wish I could see more in mainstream media. The artistic expression of its cast are buried in its work, and its character and designs, writing, and music, and I definitely recommend it to anyone who has seen the first, if not the second movie, and any fan of the Friendship is Magic series. There's even rumors of a possible fourth movie, though I'm unsure where they would go with this story next, or even a starting series under the Equestria Girls title. Either way, I'll be here at least, and as always, I am Postscript of the Brony Crusaders, and I can't wait to hear some of your thoughts and feelings next.
At least they didn't manipulate Twilight into releasing all the stolen magic and turning into a power-crazed magical creature that tried to rip the world apart just to win a game.
Wow, that's a lot to take in when you say it all at once.
Actually, we're all to blame.
Mostly it was her.